Adaobi became a billionaire at 23, while her family begged neighbors for food just to survive. She never felt guilty for refusing to help them. They deserved it. After all, they were the same people who turned their backs on her when she needed them the most. Our story began in a small village, where mud huts leaned close together like old friends whispering secrets beneath tall palm trees. Her parents weren't rich, but they were warm. Her father carried this soft kind of strength, the type that makes a child feel invincible. Then, one rainy evening, life changed with no warning. A crash, a scream, a broken lantern, a fire spreading through their little hut. By morning, Adobe was an orphan. She didn't fully understand death, but she understood empty space. The silence in her mother's hot kitchen, the absence of her father's footsteps, the way their compound felt too big. During the burial under the shade of a palm tree, people cried loudly. Adobe sat on a little stool, shivering. Her small fingers clutched the wrapper around her shoulders. Then her father's younger brother, Uncle Chike, stepped forward. He lifted her into his hands and said the sentence everyone praised him for. "She is my daughter now. I will raise her." People clapped. Women nodded. Her mother's sister said, "Chike, God will bless you." Adobe hugged his neck. She wanted to believe her nightmare was ending. And for a few months, it looked like it would. When Adobe moved into their family hut, she felt like she'd stepped into a bigger world. Her uncle's wife, Auntie Nwozi, braided her hair gently. Her cousins, Chiamaka, Ebuka, and Little Kosi, welcomed her like a new friend. She got a small corner in the hut to sleep in, a uniform for school, even a second-hand backpack that Chiamaka had outgrown. She smiled without forcing it. She ate 3 times a day. She wasn't shouted at. She wasn't stared at with pity. For a moment she thought, God didn't leave me completely alone. She washed plates, swept the sandy compound, fetched water from the village stream. But she didn't mind. It felt good to help. Her uncle would pat her head sometimes and say, "Adobe, you are a good girl." She carried that compliment like treasure. But life has a way of turning soft hands into fists. The change came slowly. It started with murmurs. Auntie Ngozi became quieter. Her husband came home later than usual. The laughter around the hut at dinner time faded. Then one morning, she overheard them fighting. "I told you that business was shaky before. You didn't tell me it was this bad. So it's my fault they laid me off." The next day, Uncle Chike sat outside under a palm tree for hours, his head buried in his hands. Adobe didn't understand. But children don't need explanations. They read emotions like weather. And the weather in that hut was changing. The first slap came after his job loss. Adobe had accidentally spilled pap on the wooden table inside the hut while serving breakfast. The sound was loud. A sharp crack across her cheek. The pap bowl hit the ground. The world paused. Everyone froze. Even her cousins stared like they'd seen lightning strike a human. Her cheek burned. Her eyes filled. Her small hands shook. She expected someone, anyone, to say something. No one did. Auntie Ngozi looked away. The children found something interesting on the wall. Chike grumbled and walked off. That night, Adobe cried silently into her pillow, the slap replaying in her ears. She understood something that day. Her safety had expired. From that day, everything she did became wrong. If she swept, it wasn't clean enough. If she cooked, too much salt. If she fetched water, she didn't carry enough. Her uncle's anger was unpredictable. It came like thunder on a clear day. Sometimes he beat her. Sometimes he insulted her. Sometimes he locked her out in the compound at night beside the kitchen hut. Sometimes he didn't let her eat with the family. Auntie Ngozi pretended not to see. Her cousins avoided her or joined in mocking her because children copy adults like mirrors. She learned to walk small, to breathe quietly, to drop her eyes, to speak only when asked. She wasn't living anymore. She was surviving. But the worst part wasn't the beatings. It wasn't even the hunger. It wasn't even the loneliness. It was when the so-called men of God entered the picture. Desperation is a blessing to fake prophets. They sniff it out like vultures smell death. When Chike's joblessness dragged for months, he began visiting churches, small village prayer huts, loud fellowships, Strange deliverance gatherings under palm fronds. One prophet touched his forehead dramatically and said, "I see chains. Chains on your finances," Chike shouted. Break it, man of God." Another prophet said, "There is a demon eating your destiny." A third whispered, "Someone close to you, very close, is the witch behind your downfall." Chike's eyes widened. "Who?" "My wife, my children." The prophet shook his head slowly. "No, the girl, the orphan girl, the one living in your heart." Silence. Chike swallowed hard. Something in his face shifted. Into fear, into suspicion, into anger. The prophet leaned closer. "She is the reason you lost your job. She is the one blocking your blessings. She carries the spirit of witchcraft." Adobe was only 9, but that night, Chike stared at her like she was a curse that grew legs. From then on, he made her sleep by the kitchen hut. He stopped her from touching his children. He prayed against her instead of for her. He poured oil on her head and forced her to confess things she didn't know existed. It wasn't discipline anymore. It was torture fueled by superstition. By the time Adobe turned 15, she had survived 6 years of emotional, physical, and spiritual abuse. Her body became a map of bruises. Her spirit became a wounded animal. Her heart became small and hidden. But she still endured. Until one Saturday morning, Chike woke up angry. For no reason. Angry at life, angry at God, angry at failure, angry at himself. But instead of facing his own mistakes, he faced the only person he could overpower, Adobe. He dragged her box, threw her clothes into it, walked to the compound gate made of bamboo, opened it wide. Then he said the sentence that sealed her childhood. "Leave. You brought bad luck into my home. Once you are gone, my life will get better." He didn't care where she would go. He didn't care if she lived or died. He didn't care that she was still a child. He closed the gate behind her. And just like that, when the gate closed behind her, Adobe stood outside with her small box, unsure of what to do next. People walked past her on the sandy village road. Some looked, most ignored. Nobody asked her where she was going. She wiped her face and began walking. Not because she knew her destination, but because standing there made her feel even more unwanted. She slept behind village shops for 2 nights. She bathed with water from an old drum behind the market, the one traders used to store rainwater. She ate only when someone offered her leftovers. She learned quickly that the world does not slow down for a child with nowhere to go. On the 3rd day, an older woman selling vegetables noticed her sitting beside the palm trees near the market. "Girl, why are you always here? Where's your family?" Adobe didn't tell the full story. She simply said, "My uncle said I shouldn't come back." The woman sighed heavily. She didn't have space in her mud hut. She already lived there with 4 children. But she let Adobe help her at the store. In exchange, Adobe got food. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep her going. That was how survival began. One day at a time. Life on her own was not kind. Some days, the vegetable woman didn't sell well, so Adobe didn't eat. Some nights, she slept sitting up because lying down in certain places in the village was dangerous. Men tried to lure her with money she didn't want. Other children mocked her. Rain soaked her. Cold woke her. She didn't complain. She didn't blame anyone. She simply told herself, "As long as I don't die, I will make it." She found small work, washing plates in a roadside food shed, sweeping in front of shops, helping women carry loads, peeling beans for akara sellers. The money was tiny, but she saved every coin carefully. When she finally rented a small corner space in the corridor of a woman's mud hut, barely enough for a mat, she felt like she had won a house. For the first time since she was 7, she had a door she could close. It wasn't much, but it was hers. At 17, Adobe applied for a job as a shop attendant in a small provision stall near the village square. The owner, Madame Rose, asked her, "Do you know maths?" "Yes, ma." "Do you know how to serve customers?" "Yes, ma." "Do you steal?" "No, ma." Madame Rose looked at her quietly and said, "You look like someone who has suffered." Adobe didn't answer. She didn't need to. Madame Rose hired her on the spot. For the first time in her teenage years, Adobe earned steady money. She bought decent clothes from the market. She ate regularly. She saved. She smiled sometimes. Real smiles, not the forced ones. She rebuilt herself slowly, piece by piece. Every day she gained something her uncle never expected her to have: a life without him. While Adobe was gradually finding her feet, things in her uncle's mud hut were not improving. In fact, they were getting worse. He didn't get another stable job. His small business attempts kept failing. His children were always sent home for unpaid school fees. His wife grew frustrated. Arguments became normal. Peace left the house. The prophets kept demanding more money. He kept giving it. Nothing changed. Every time something went wrong, he repeated the same line: "If that girl was still here, she would have finished all of us." But deep down, something very small, a thought he tried to bury, whispered a different truth: nothing improved after you threw her out. But pride is louder than truth. So he pushed the thought away. Adobe was 20 when she saw her uncle again. She was working in the shop. She had grown, confident, calm, standing tall. She wore clean clothes and looked nothing like the broken girl he had thrown out. Her uncle entered the shop with a list from his wife. He didn't notice her first. She greeted him. "Good afternoon, sir." He looked up. Their eyes met. He froze. She didn't tremble. She didn't cry. She didn't lower her gaze. She simply stood there, steady. For the first time in his life, Uncle Chike felt something he had never felt toward her before: shame. He looked away quickly. How are you?" he asked, voice shaking a little. "I'm fine," she replied. He nodded, unable to meet her eyes again. When he left, his hands were shaking. That night, he sat outside his hut in silence. Years had passed. He was still poor, still struggling, still frustrated. Yet the girl he called a curse, the child he threw out, the witch he blamed for everything, was standing strong, working hard, living life. And something broke inside him. He realized she wasn't his problem. She wasn't the cause of his failure. She wasn't a witch. She wasn't bad luck. She was just a child he failed. For the first time in many years, he said the words out loud: "I was wrong." But he didn't say it to her, because sometimes life doesn't give you that chance. Adobe didn't magically become rich overnight, but she had peace, a place to sleep, a job, a plan, confidence, strength life forced into her, and a future she built with her own 2 hands. She spoke kindly to customers. She helped people in need. She saved consistently. She never became like her uncle. Her past didn't harden her heart. It sharpened it. At 23, she moved into her own small hut at the edge of the village. She bought her own mattress, her own pots, her own table. The first night she slept there, she cried. Not from pain, but from relief. Everything she had, she earned it herself. No one could take credit. No one could take it away. Her uncle remained the same, still struggling, still blaming everything except himself, still waiting for miracles that never came. People in the village talked. "That girl he threw out, she's doing well now. I hear she has her own place. She's even helping other people." Her wife heard it. His children heard it. He heard it too. And every time her name came up, something in his chest tightened. He didn't say sorry. He didn't apologize. But the regret lived with him, a quiet punishment he carried into old age. Meanwhile, Adobe moved forward without looking back, because some people are meant to be chapters, not your whole story. Moral of the story: not everyone you run to for help has the heart to love you. Some adults will destroy a child just to avoid facing their own failures. Fake prophets destroy more lives than demons ever could. But no matter what you survive as a child, your future is still yours to build. And Adobe built